Hello, welcome to this virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. We welcome you as you are. In all our similarities and all of our differences, we see strength. It is our hope and intention to grow the circle of love and welcome every day. My name is Sharon Van Name, and I've had the honor of serving this congregation in various roles for more than 30 years. If you are new to our congregation and would like to learn more about us, there is a slide at the end with contact information for our membership team and for our minister. Please feel free to ask questions that will help you determine how this caring spiritual community might be a fit for you. Today is the Sunday nearest to International Transgender Day of Visibility. This day is very personal for me. I was the president in 2004 when this congregation voted to become a welcoming congregation. That's with a capital W and a capital C. The world was very different then, and this decision carried the very real possibility of community backlash. When we voted to fully include people of every sexual orientation and gender identity, we didn't know what we have learned in the years since. I didn't know that we were making a safer world for my bisexual daughter and my transgender grandchild. I'll share more about that later in the service. Today, we don't know everything that we will know in the future, but we are learning to be better, to be more fully welcoming. Being a welcoming congregation means that we commit to growing in our capacity to be a more inclusive we. This call to worship was written for Transgender Day of Visibility by Sharon Wiley. We speak so often of brokenness in religious life. Let us speak today of wholeness. You are welcome here, all of you, every part of you beautiful just the way you are. Here you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here. Nothing to prove to me or to the person sitting next to you or to the children or to anyone. You don't have to try to be witty or more quiet or more outgoing. You are beautiful, every part of you beautiful just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful, just the way they are. You are extraordinary. Each and every one of you different from each and beautiful in your own beautiful way, breathtaking. Let us kindle the chalice of our hearts and worship together.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with heart is in a holy place. When we tell a story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
After a pause in mass shootings in 2020 as the coronavirus pandemic raged, the U.S. has again seen two major shooting rampages in the last 2 weeks. One at 3 Atlanta spas week before last, and the other at a Boulder supermarket on this past Monday. 8 people died in the Atlanta attack, which targeted women, especially Asian women. 10 people died in the Boulder shooting, an attack that appeared untargeted on any specific group. Those are the stories that made the national news, but there have been 7 mass killings in the U.S. so far this year, counting incidents in which 4 or more people died, not including the shooter. If the definition is broadened to include incidents in which 4 or more people died or were wounded, other than the shooter, there have been 7 mass shootings in the past week. Each and every victim of these shootings must be remembered as a whole world of possibility lost to us, as individuals with their unique lives, as persons with inherent worth and dignity that was not honored by the one who murdered them. And without losing track of that enormous reality, we must also recognize that this is a modest part of total gun violence in America. Many who die by suicide use a gun. And gun violence enters into casual disputes among neighbors and strangers and into domestic violence. The mechanism is the gun, so gun laws have to be part of the cultural change to decrease the number of persons lost to all forms of this violence. The loss is incalculable. The psychology is one that does not value life and does not recognize inherent worth and dignity, that sees individuals as a means toward another's ends, rather than to be seen and cherished. So recognizing the many complex features of how and why this reality has taken hold of our society, recognizing that laws and values have to change, recognizing that despair is not an option, however much it tempts us, and that we all have a responsibility to change things. Let us hold in our hearts those lost to gun violence in these two recent attacks and in all gun violence so far this year. Let us commit to being part of the change that values life. Let us hold these in our heart together quietly. Our words of prayer are written by Tess Baumberger. Let us make this earth a heaven right here, right now. Who knows what existence's death will bring? Let us create a heaven here on earth where love and truth and justice will reign. Let us welcome all at our pearly gates, our freedom table, amid singing and great rejoicing, black, white, yellow, red, and all of the lovely colors, straight, gay, transgender, bisexual, and all the ways of loving our own and each other's bodies. Blind, deaf, mute, healthy or sick, variously abled, young, old, fat, thin, gentle, cranky, joyous, sorrowing. Let no one feel excluded. Let no one feel alone. May the rich let loose their wealth to rain upon the poor. May the poor share their riches with those who are too used to money. May we come to venerate the earth, our mother, and tend her with wisdom and compassion. May we make our earth an Eden, a paradise. May no one wish to leave her. May hate and warfare cease to clash in causes too old and tired to name. Religion, nationalism, the false god of gold, deep-rooted ethnic hatreds. May these all disperse and wane. May we see each other's true selves. May we all dwell together in peace and joy and understanding. And let us make a heaven here on earth before it's too late. Let us make this earth a heaven for each other's sake. Now let us hold the joys and sorrows of this community unspoken today, but perhaps we will hear some later. Let us hold them in our hearts together quietly.
Blessed are you, awakener, life of all worlds, who removes sleep from my eyes and slumber from my eyelids.
Blessed are you, generous creatrix, who stretches forth the earth upon the waters.
Blessed are you, sacred flame, who shines your light upon everyone and everything.
Blessed are you, wings of gold, who crowns my people, all people, with splendor.
Blessed are you, holy fashion designer, who delights in the way we dress ourselves as altars.
Blessed are you, nameless and infinite, who has made us in your image and reminds us that all bodies are sacred and holy. Boom, boom.
Blessed are you, liberation worker, who moves us to stretch and expand towards freedom.
Blessed are you, divine apple orchard, who delights in my delight and receives my pleasure as praise.
Blessed are you, the way, who meets me where I am.
Blessed are you, holy breath, who fills me with this gift every day.
Blessed are you, abundance, for helping me remember I have everything I need.
Blessed are you, source of life, who I draw upon for strength, and who reminds me that rest is a sacred act.
Blessed are you, fabulous one, who loves me just as I am.
Blessed are you, weaver of being, who shaped the human being with wisdom, making for us all of the openings and vessels of the body. It is known that we are miracles, and that all bodies are miracles.
Blessed are you, you of many names, for revealing infinite paths of healing.
Blessed are you,
you of many names,
for revealing
infinite paths of healing.
What We Choose by Andrew Cote. A few years ago, my little sister moved in with me from our native Los Angeles to the coast of Maine. The move brought a lot of firsts for her. Snow, the Atlantic Ocean, and seeing me as an older brother instead of an older sister. Neither of us was sure what to do that first night she lived with me, because what are you supposed to do when, at 22, you suddenly have your very own teenager? We ended up at one of those DVD kiosks. When it asked for my zip code, I punched the number 9. before correcting myself and typing the 0 that starts off the zip code for Bar Harbor. Still? My sister asked. I'd started the zip code for back home. It had been 10 years since I moved away. My sister's arrival brought part of my past into my very different presence. At this suddenly forced everything out of the hiding places I'd been keeping them in. I had put home in a box and stuffed it into the farthest depths of my closet. I got lost without it for a while, but then I found communities that seemed to make sense in a way that my family never did. I used to scoff at the idea of a chosen family because it seemed like a feel-good characterization to use when your family of origin didn't work for you. I never really embraced it for myself until I started thinking about ancestry rather than parentage. Like so many people my age in the United States, my identities are all mixed up and only partially visible. The more mixed up our identities get, the more important our choices become. Ancestry is no longer just a question of fate or genetics, but of whose shoulders we stand on. My genetic families of origin aren't necessarily recognizable when you look at me, but my chosen family, those queers and religious liberals of the past, present, and future, come shining through. I embody that history when I walk out the door because they made it possible for me to walk out the door as an openly transgender seminarian. They are my history more completely than anything I was born into. I used to think that meant family of choice was no place to call home, but it's not that simple. Every time we move toward liberation, we can do so because of those who came before us. Those who come after us will move more easily because of what we have accomplished. This is not something limited to queer people whose families are giving them a hard time. We all choose, and sometimes that dividing line between choice and birth disappears. My sister never embraced the East Coast the way I did. She moved back home, but we talk now. She'll text me, "Hey bro, we've chosen each other, just as we found different ancestors to lean on and have established our own networks of support. We've chosen different todays, are making different tomorrows, and have different pasts. Yet we also share a common history, and now we are part of each other's todays and tomorrows as well."
living true, no doubt in my mind. And these changes, they take time, you'll find. I didn't change who I am. I've always been a man. Still it changed your world, but Dad, That doesn't mean your daughter ever did run. I'll always be close to you, no matter what. I love you and no doors are ever shut. I didn't change who I am. I've always been a man. Still it changed your world, but Dad, I'll always stay your little girl. I didn't change who I am. I've always been a man. Still it changed your world, but Dad, I'll always stay your little girl. But Dad, I'll always stay your little girl.
Hello. With permission, I want to share some things about my grandchild, who was named Alexis and assigned female at birth. This is a person who is kind and caring, aware of injustice and committed to righting it. A dreamer who creates whole worlds and shares them through writing and absolutely extraordinary drawings. A quick mind who delights in deep conversations about things that matter. A person curious about the world and eager for new experiences. But for a while, quite a while actually, a cloud surrounded them, a deep sadness that seemed to be a weight on body and spirit until finally about a month ago, thoughts of suicide prompted an urgent call for help. We learned two things about our beloved child, that they are bipolar and transgender, perhaps male, perhaps non-binary, but not female and not Alexis. This is Lucas, exactly the same amazing person, but with the sun returning through the clouds. It is a great privilege to be trusted with someone's truth. We know that there are challenging days ahead as we support Lucas in dealing with medical, psychological, and social issues. But our family is filled with hope and the joy of a person being who they are and becoming all that they can become.
As I was growing up in rural Illinois in the 1960s and 70s, I didn't know any transgender people. Oh, by the time I was a teenager, I knew that transgender people existed, but I didn't know if I knew any. I didn't even suspect that I did. And to the best of my knowledge, no one I knew in those years has yet transitioned to a gender different from what they were assigned at birth. Undoubtedly, there were transgender persons, even in my small rural community. The varieties of sex and gender have not changed for humanity in the past 60 years, but transgender persons were, for the most part, not seen. The terminology of the day was not there yet. In Dear Abby or Ann Landers, occasionally the word transsexual would come up, but the categories and realities were not well represented. Every discussion was in terms of pre- and post-operative, every discussion in terms of male, female, man, woman, the binary that cisgender heterosexual society especially has made normative. Surgery held a different place in understanding the issues than it does now. The ways transgender issues and realities are presented and discussed today did not exist yet. And outside of large cities, many transgender people felt safer keeping their truth a secret. When I was a teen and young adult, I knew of just one transgender person, and they were in the next county over. I did not know them or how they knew themselves to be. They were understood by most in the community to be a man, and they wore a dress when they went about town. They were an object of derision, neither seen nor respected as having inherent worth. Teenage boys and young men especially would shout epithets and insults at them. Occasionally, we would hear that this transgender member of the community, this one person who wore a dress in public, had been beaten up. And that was the extent of my exposure as a teen and young adult. Transgender people were invisible, whether by personal choice or enforced by others because of risks and dangers. That was the world I came of age in. And as a result, I didn't think deeply about transgender issues. And as it happened, I had my own issues of being marginalized and disrespected to deal with. Yet, after I came out as gay, I would sometimes socially encounter transgender people, but they were not members of my closer circle. I did not actually know them. And so I never heard their stories and their concerns directly from them. I was 50 years old and a seminary student before I actually knew an out transgender person on a personal level. It seems astounding now to think a person could live half a century before personally knowing out transgender persons. Approximately 5% of the population are transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming, gender queer. The terms are many, and we don't have to start from a position of knowing what all the words mean. Rather, we have to start from a position of seeing each person as they see themselves and wish to be seen, and hearing their reality in their own words. Having a day of transgender visibility matters. In varying degrees, anyone who is part of an identity group that experiences some level of oppression has experienced the effects of social invisibility and social silencing. Individual experience, of course, varies considerably, but women know what it is not to be seen in ways they value, but often to be either objectified, ignored, or silenced. People of color know how their presence and what they offer is often ignored or undervalued. Everyone on the LGBTQ spectrum has experienced some degree of being ignored, unheard, unvalued. People with disabilities know this same silencing and invisibility. Being seen as you are, rather than how society would project onto you, is not the goal, but the beginning, the bare beginning, the baseline for human dignity. In the ancient story in the Hebrew scriptures, there was Abraham, who on his wife Sarah's suggestion suggestion used her enslaved servant, Hagar, as a surrogate to produce a child. And there begins a tragic tale that you will have to read for yourself if you haven't heard it, but it leads to Sarah demanding that Abraham cast Hagar and her child out into the desert to die. And he does it. Out in the desert, in despair, Hagar is seen by God, who makes her a promise not only of survival, but of her sons becoming the ancestor of a great people. Hagar is the only person in all the Hebrew scriptures to be shown giving God a name. And that name is, in Hebrew, El Roi, the God who sees me. To Sarah, Hagar had been a slave rather than a person. To Abraham, she was usable and disposable depending on family circumstances. She was not seen. She was not seen as a person. She was not seen as having inherent worth and dignity. She was not seen as having her own aspirations, loves, and fears. To Hagar, being seen was a divine act. The people around her had abused her as a means to their own ends rather than seeing her. Being seen is freeing. It allows the individual to be who they are rather than existing in someone else's story. We live in a time when, in fits and starts to be sure, our society is lurching toward the choice of seeing an ever broader portion of the population, seeing them as people, as worthy of equity and respect. Right now in Washington, a bill is under consideration in the Senate after passing the House of Representatives. It sets to include sex, sexual orientation, and gender identities in the same list of protected areas already enshrined in law. The Equality Act, as it is known, faces an uphill battle in the Senate, where the filibuster means that the small majority supporting the bill is not likely to succeed anytime soon. It's probably going to take several iterations before it can become law, but it is being considered. It has passed one chamber of Congress. Republican senators have already expressed strong opposition. Senator Lindsey Graham of North Carolina has declared, "I would talk till I fell over to make sure that the Equality Act doesn't become law, destroying the difference between a man and a woman in our law." A right wing of American politics has determined that seeing people, actually seeing people and honoring their inherent worth and dignity is somewhere they are unwilling to go. Like Abraham and Sarah's response to Hagar, whom they saw as a lesser being, that political group see people as a means to their own goals rather than as actual human beings worthy of dignity. And so we need Transgender Day of Visibility more and more. The advances of equal rights for gay men and lesbians did not happen until we were seen, until everyone realized that they really did know and even respect people whose sexuality had been forced deep into the closet. Visibility, by whatever means, is a necessary component of progress and of hope, forcing each other not to ignore the reality of people around us, forcing us to realize that the idea of us and them is an illusion, a lie, a misunderstanding. In words often misattributed to James Baldwin, Robert Jones Jr., known by the Twitter handle Son of Baldwin, says, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and the denial of my humanity and right to exist." There is room for many disagreements about means to the end of the greater common good, but the disagreement we cannot allow to shape our laws, our policies, our society, or our mores is the disagreement rooted in refusal to see people as worthy, as having inherent worth and dignity. That which we would call divine sees the person as the person sees themselves and would be seen. It's rather like lessons we should have learned in kindergarten or before. International Transgender Day of Visibility was founded by US-based transgender activist Rachel Crandall of Michigan in 2009 as a reaction to the lack of recognition of transgender people, even among lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals. She was frustrated that the only well-known transgender-centered day was the Transgender Day of Remembrance, a necessary day to be sure, which mourned the murders of transgender people, but a day which did not acknowledge and celebrate living members of the transgender community. The first International Transgender Day of Visibility was held on March 31st, 2009. It has since been spearheaded by the US-based youth advocacy organization Trans Student Educational Resources. It falls on March 31st each year. Let those of us who are cisgender, that is, those of us who are not transgender, use this day to open our eyes, to see realities and lives other than our own, to recognize achievements and aspirations other than our own. Let us truly see each other. Amen, and blessed be.
Hello, my name is AJ Young, and I'd like to talk to you briefly about why I think adopting the eighth principle for the Unitarian Church in Waynesboro, Virginia is so vitally important. I think that it could never come at a more opportune time than the moment that we're living in right now. If in fact we are a congregation that is determined to be more resolute in our position, standing against injustice, standing against racism, standing against inequality, then I think it's only right that we as a congregation adopt such a mandate that holds us to account so that we ourselves are committed to doing what is right in this particular time. The Unitarian Church of Waynesboro is definitely in position and has the fortitude, has the strength to be not only a place of refuge in the city of Waynesboro, but a place that people can look to as a beacon of hope. And so I'm encouraged today, and I'm grateful that the UU has taken the opportunity to expose us to the eighth principle. And I believe that it's one that we will soon adopt. Thank you all very much.
I met Jesus at the gay pride parade. He was praying for us to be free. A man with the Bible yelled hatefully, and Jesus countered by taking a knee. He said, "They're people just like you, and God loves them living out their truth. They are people just like you, and they deserve to live just as much as you. And they deserve to love just as much as you." I met Jesus on Sunset Boulevard, on a sidewalk of tents and poverty. He said, "Young brother, why'd you look the other way, away from the people who are starving and need to eat? They're people just like you, and they have dreams and struggles just like you do. And I love them how I love you, and they deserve to be here just as much as you. And they deserve to eat just as much as you. And they deserve to be here just as much as you." I met Jesus at our nation's capital. He was wiping tears from his eyes. He never wanted no war and hate, so he cried like I cried. At the racists who divide, using his name to justify their bigotry and white pride, their violence of who deserves to live and die. Jesus cried. Jesus cried. Jesus cried. Jesus cried. You must stop this hatred now and live to help one another out. You must strive for kindness now and learn to know what love is about. And learn to know what love is about. 'Cause they are people just like you, and God loves them living out their truth. They're people just like you, and they deserve to be here just as much as you. And they deserve to be here just as much as you.
Back in 1996, the feminist Jewish scholar and poet Marcia Falk's book titled The Book of Blessings, New Jewish Prayers for Daily Life, the Sabbath, and the New Moon Festival was published. True to the name and true to the time and the feminism of its author, this was something new, a way of approaching religious concepts in a new world of growing recognition of the worth and dignity of people traditionally relegated to lesser positions. One of the blessings she re-envisioned was the blessing Jewish parents have traditionally made over their children each Shabbat. Traditionally, it was a different blessing for boys than for girls, a blessing for the boys to grow up to be like Ephraim and Manasseh, sons of Joseph of old, and a blessing for the girls to grow up like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, the matriarchs of old. But Marcia Falk imagined a blessing that was not gendered and wished for today's children that they be themselves, whatever truth that brought forth. In my home congregation, In Mount Vernon, Illinois, when I would lead the service, I always ended with Marcia Fox's blessing of the children. And today, especially relevant to Transgender Day of Visibility, I offer as our benediction Marcia Fox's blessing of the children. It's short, so I'll say it twice, once for you to hear and once for you to say along with me. Be who you are, and may you be blessed in all that you are. Be who you are, and may you be blessed in all that you are. Amen, and blessed be.